Hey, welcome here. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I get a lot of questions here on YouTube and also over on my Instagram about the pedals that I use. And I've been using both the reverb and the delay pedals from Universal Audio for a while now. And I recently picked up the Astra, which is their modulation pedal. And now that I've got all three, I thought it might be kind of interesting to just go through and show you guys some of the settings that I like to use. And maybe it'll help you figure out if you want to get one of them yourself. So this is the current version of my pedal board. Now that I've got the Astra on there, we're going to start with the Golden just because it's pretty much going to be on all the time, even when I'm playing around with the other effects. And the main effect that I use the Golden for is spring reverb. Now I feel like this is kind of a given. I feel like most guitar players, you're not ever going to have your signal completely dry. You're going to have some form of reverb on there. The Golden does this exceptionally well. So this is the kind of the spring that I like to use. Now I found that the decay is pretty aggressive on the spring, so even when it's set almost all the way off, actually literally all the way off, it's still got quite a bit of decay, so you can hear it does die off. And I'm using the smooth setting, so it's the B setting here. It's just my favorite sounding spring. And I have the mix set low, the pre-delay set low. I took a little bit of the treble off because I find it quite bright, bumped the bass up a little bit, and I keep the modulation low as well. So it sounds like this. So you can hear, I basically just use it as an always on reverb. So no matter what effects I'm using, no matter what overdrives I'm using, I just keep it on all the time. So here's another example. If I were to turn a fuzz on, and then the preset that I use on the Golden is the plate, and it's plate B specifically. If you haven't heard this in other demos, it's a super cool ambient kind of plate. And obviously the settings aren't going to show there because it's a stored preset. But basically I have like the mix and the decay set pretty high, and then the pre-delay set basically where it is right now. Minimal modulation just because I don't love modulation on my reverbs. And then the EQ is almost the same. I think I've rolled a little bit of the bass off, but it sounds like this. And I'll throw a little bit of drive on there so you can hear what that sounds like too. So that's pretty much it. Obviously the Golden does a ton more than that, but those are the two main sounds that I use. So we'll move on to the Starlight next, and I'm gonna keep that spring reverb on all the time. Like I said, without it, you can hear it sounds so dry, and with it, it just sounds great stacked with everything, so I'm just gonna leave it on. All right, so for the Starlight, what I like to do is I really like to just have a subtle kind of deluxe Memory Man style delay on. I was actually a hater of delay pedals and delay in general for a really long time. Like years of my playing, I would always keep delay off my board. And I got a chance to borrow the Wazacraft DM2, I think it's called. It's that red delay, Boss delay pedal that came out recently. It's kind of a remake of that old vintage one. And I just kind of fell in love with it. The problem with it is that it doesn't have a tap tempo, and not that tap tempo is really that important, especially with how subtly I set my analog delay. But I find that having that tap tempo just kind of cleans everything up. So what I do is I actually set it to the dotted eighth. Because I find like a quarter note or a half note delay, it just sounds a little bit too bland and sterile. I kind of want there to be something going on when I have delay on. And I keep the settings, again, super minimal. So the mix is set quite low. Modulation is basically off, and I'm using the C setting, which I can't remember. It's chorus, or vibrato. It's one of the two, but it's barely in there. And yeah, set to the analog DMM setting. And it sounds like this. Now, I don't really use it for a lot else. I do like slapback sometimes. I used to play in a country band that I don't play in anymore, and the slapback was great for that, so I do have it set to that, which is just a quick slapback. It kind of mixes really well with the spring reverb from the Golden. Probably my favorite thing that this pedal does has to do with the color knob. If I switch it back over here, basically, it does something different depending on which setting you're on here. But for the analog, what it does is it actually works as a preamp. So if I'll just turn some of this stuff off. Now what the color does is obviously I have it set right at the middle, but if I were to turn this off, and if I turn it up more, it sounds surprisingly good for basically a digital overdrive. But what this can do is, using the app, you can actually turn it on so that when the pedals bypass, that stays on. Now, if you're really into your true bypass pedals, which you probably shouldn't be, then you won't want that turned on. But if you have the buffer bypass on, you can leave that preamp engaged. So when I turn the pedal off, so the pedal's bypassed right now, and then I turn up the color knob, so it actually gets pretty gnarly. Now, I don't really use it for that reason. Basically, what I'm using it as is a way to keep the level kind of strong as it goes through the pedal board. Obviously, as it's coming through each pedal, it's buffered on its way in, and then it goes through everything. And then by the time it gets to here, it's kind of nice to have that extra push before it hits this and heads on into the amplifier. But this little preamp from the color knob actually makes a huge difference. So if I didn't have it at all in my pedal chain, my clean signal would sound like this. But with that color knob set to there, all right, lastly here is my most recent acquisition, and that is the Astra. Now, I have never personally owned a chorus pedal ever that I can remember. And I grew up in kind of a weird time where chorus was just never cool in the type of music that I listened to. And it wasn't until recently when John Mayer started using it, and I now listen to a lot of indie music where chorus is pretty prominent. The problem is that I didn't want to replace my harmonic Trem with a chorus pedal, and I only have so much room on my board, and I don't want to go with a bigger pedal board than this. I like this size. And so the cool thing about the Astra is that I can keep a chorus on one side and I can keep a harmonic Trem on the other side. So this is the chorus sound. It's just this one knob basically that affects the chorus. And I have it set quite low. So the other stuff basically is bypassed except for this shade, I believe. Yeah, which is basically the output. And I just have the chorus sounding like this. So I like it set pretty subtle. If I crank it up, it's a little bit just too much. It's just too much for me. I prefer to have it set back there. And it's something I've got to explore a little bit more. Like I said, I haven't been a chorus guy in the past, but I'm really enjoying it and I think it sounds really good. The other effect I'm using on here, like I said, is the harmonic tremolo. It sounds like this. So it does that chewy thing, which is what I like. It almost kind of, to me, does something similar to what an envelope filter would do, where it takes away some of the impact from that initial transient of the note. And it sounds especially cool when it's paired with a fuzz and you play with your fingers. So I will show you, it's kind of this type of thing. obviously these pedals sound amazing together. Obviously you've been hearing the spring reverb from the Golden with everything else, but let's just stack a few things up and listen to some other sounds. Okay, so that's just a little snippet of what these pedals can do. Obviously they can do a whole lot more. This is just kind of how I like to use them. One thing I would like to see with the Universal Audio pedals is maybe some way to have more presets. All right, so I have to interrupt myself here really quick. I'm in the middle of editing this video, and I saw recently that UA actually updated their app. And what this does is actually allows you to store presets. So if I go into the Starlight here, just give it a second. You can see now that we've got all of these presets, and this is very recent, so this wasn't here before. And if you scroll through, you can see it's actually saved every single one of the presets I've ever had. And now this was before the app had this functionality, but it saved every single thing that I saved in the pedal. So it was doing this behind the scenes the whole time. And you can favorite things. They actually uploaded a bunch of factory presets here, and it looks like they're starting to do artists too. It looks like this is pretty new. I'm sure there'll be a lot more. It's got Tim Pierce and Tyler Bryant. That's really cool. And then yeah, you can favorite stuff, and you can go in, and this just happens live. So you can just click on this and it'll change the pedal over to whatever the preset is, which is really cool. So I just thought I needed to stop and add those couple things before I wrapped up the video. Universal Audio did just release a bunch of new amp modelers. They look amazing. Everything I've heard so far, they sound really good. I do have one on the way, so I can't wait to share that with you guys and put it up head to head with my Dr. Z. And if you have any questions about these pedals or any of the other pedals on my board, please let me know by leaving it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like content like this, please make sure you subscribe to the channel because I upload a new video every single week. With that said, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.